Ukraine has opened a murder investigation after former parliamentary speaker Andriy Parubiy was shot dead in the western city of Lviv. According to the Prosecutor General's office, Parubiy was shot multiple times by gunmen who then fled the situation. Authorities have launched a manhunt to find the attacker. Parubiy was a prominent figure in Ukraine's 2014 Maidan revolution and served as parliamentary speaker from 2016 to 2019. He was also a key leader in the protests that led to Ukraine's push for closer ties with the European Union. Mr. Andrew Latham with us on the broadcast. Mr. Latham, how exactly does the assassination of a prominent, one can say, pro-Western figure like Parubiy impact the U.S. strategy of supporting Ukraine's democratic institutions and also its push for closer ties with the European Union?
Well, we have to recognize, as I'm sure your listeners and viewers know, that the population of Ukraine pre-2014 was divided. Those who wanted closer relations with Russia versus those who wanted closer relations with the West, the European Union, and even NATO membership. And that was decided by what some people refer to as a coup in 2014. I'm not sure that's an apt and accurate description, but there certainly was a profound change of government, and the pro-Western forces came to power. And that's where this particular gentleman figures quite prominently. Now, it's been over 10 years since then, although he's played a prominent role in Ukrainian politics. One wonders aloud if the person who pulled the trigger, as it were, was a Russian special operator of some sort, intelligence agent, or whether it was one of those pro-Russian Ukrainians who simply is settling a very old score at this point. We'll have to wait for the investigation to unfold. I rather suspect that it's a domestic assassin, and I rather suspect it's tied to those still deep divisions within Ukraine regarding Ukraine's ultimate geopolitical orientation, eastward or westward.
Interesting. Mr. Latham, as a follow-up, I want to understand, in your assessment, you say that you think that the assassination could be tied to domestic politics, but of course, there are sources that continue to blame Russia for it. What does this really mean as far as the conflict with Russia then is concerned? Do you think that this could become another sour point?
Well, it will become, already has become something of a rallying point within Ukraine. Russia, Russia, Russia is always the refrain, and that doesn't surprise me. Russia obviously is up to no good when it comes to Ukraine. But this is something a little different. The very public assassination of a very prominent political actor who was one of the driving forces behind Ukraine's reorientation westward back post-2014. It may well be that the Russians, I'm not sure what the value added for the Russians are in assassinating this figure, but there may be things going on beneath the surface or behind the curtain that we're not aware of at this point. But my instinct, my political antennae are telling me that this is a domestic assassination, which is why it's proven to be so scary to many Ukrainians. Are we now ushering in a new era, not just a foreign invasion and separatism in Donbass, but political violence in the form of assassinations and whatnot that really hasn't been part of the picture in Ukraine thus far?
Interesting, Mr. Latham. What does this then signify about the state of internal politics in Ukraine right now? Of course, Zelensky is in the middle of a war. What does this truly mean for him and his future and the futures of other leaders who are leading the war at this point in time?
Well, that's a very interesting question. On the one hand, President Zelensky's popularity has been in steady decline within Ukraine for quite some time. Numerous sites of opposition, those who want to negotiate, are willing to negotiate away those eastern oblasts, those whose relatives have been wounded, sometimes grievously, or been killed in this war and are tired of it. And the war is not going well. And so it's not surprising that the man who postured as the public face of a successful Ukrainian war effort is not faring well now that the war effort is not faring well. But that's qualitatively different from, so that's a political opposition. That's qualitatively different from assassinations and that kind of political violence. And that's where I think we might have hit something of a tipping point in Ukrainian domestic politics, moving from those kinds of the guardrails have come down, and the political opposition may be morphing into something more violent and less parliamentary and democratic.
All right, Ms. Latham, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast with that perspective. We leave it there and we shift our focus to other big developments taking place globally.